This is Nikki, and today we are going to make the travel jewelry wallet. This is a companion sew-along video that goes along with the pattern linked in the description below. This is a particularly exciting pattern for me to launch because it's been in the works for a very long time. In fact, I thought I had it perfected, and then a friend of mine inspired me to include multiple size options. So you've got 3 size options in the pattern, and it is written to be very beginner friendly. Let's go ahead and dive into the features of the travel jewelry wallet. The sweet and practical travel jewelry wallet has a ribbon closure, which allows for maximum expandability, even for the most chunky jewelry. The interior features a large open pocket, plus 2 zipper pockets, and a jewelry keeper strap. The jewelry keeper strap is constructed out of cork fabric, but you could substitute any non-fraying fabric that you like. And the cam snap could be substituted out for a different snap or even sew on Velcro. Let's take a look at the tools we're going to need to assemble for our project. We will need an iron today and some sewing clips, fabric scissors and snips, and a fabric marker, a ruler, some fabric glue. And for the cam snap installation, you'll want a cam snap setter and a hole punch. The hole punch will also be used in the optional earring holes if you want to put some earring holes in your jewelry keeper strap. This is a standard office hole punch, a 1/16 of an inch. That will work out great, but you may also choose to use a heavy-duty hole punch. This one is set at its smallest setting, which is an 1/8 of an inch. I would not go any larger than an 1/8 of an inch for those holes. Optionally, you may choose to use a stylus. It's always useful for guiding your fabric through your machine. And for the cork doesn't fray. It's a non-fraying fabric, but it does fuzz up a little on the edges because it has a backing on it. Totally optional, but sometimes I choose to use a lighter to run it across the edges of the cork. It will burnish those edges and sort of seal them in so that there is no fuzzing of the edges. Again, that's totally optional. And now that we have our tools all assembled and ready, let's take a look at the materials we're going to use in our project. For today's tutorial, I've chosen to construct the medium-sized travel jewelry wallet, and I have all of our fabric cut to size and interfaced according to the pattern. I have chosen 2 fun prints of cotton fabric, as well as a sort of natural-looking cork fabric for our strap, our jewelry keeper strap. And I've chosen to match thread to each type of fabric, but you could do some contrast thread if you wanted. And the fun thing is that you can mix and match and mix things up the way you want for the effect that you want. I've also got my cam snaps here in a little sunny blue that's going to tie things in. And I've chosen in my project to bring some of the exterior inside and some of the interior outside to sort of pull it all together. This is my main exterior fabric, and I've also used this fabric for my pocket linings that will go inside on the interior. This is my main interior lining fabric. We have our pocket panel here, and I've chosen to create our closure straps to use fabric from the interior for the closure straps on the exterior. These 2 little pieces here are zipper inlays, and this is where we're going to start our project today. Ideally, if you want these to be discreet, they're going to make up our zipper boxes, and it's really nice if these match your pocket panel fabric. So that's what I've done here, and this is where we'll get started. So without further ado, let's get sewing. I've got our zipper inlays and a couple of fabric markers. We're going to turn these right sides down, and I think the red marker is going to show up a little bit better on this fabric. I'm going to measure the sides first. The goal here is to draw our zipper boxes, center them on this fabric. All the measurements are in the pattern. The first thing I'm going to do is measure our line inside here. Okay, with our boxes drawn in, I'm going to set these aside and we're going to get started on the jewelry keeper strap. Okay, I've got our pieces of cork and our glue, and I'm going to put glue on the wrong side of one cork strip. And then I'm going to put the other piece of cork right side up on top of that. While this glue is not quite dry, I can still wiggle this around to make sure everything is lined up really nicely along our edges. It's a little harder to wiggle it lengthwise, but that's okay because we can go to our cutting mat and just trim the ends so that they're nice and flush and lined up. I think I will put the cam snap on this end. I'm going to go ahead and snip these corners. This is optional, but I like the effect of having those corners mitered. I'm just going to very gently take the slightest amount off of those corners. Okay, I like the way that looks. So our next step is going to be to top stitch 1/8 of an inch in along this side and the short edge where we're going to put the cam snap, and then all the way around the other side. We're not going to stitch this up yet. When we attach this to our pocket panel, we'll stitch that up with a Z. But for now, we're just going to top stitch around the other 3 edges. Okay, I've burnished those raw edges with the lighter, and just to be cautious about doing that, practice first if you're using a light color of cork, because it is possible to leave burn marks on the cork. This turned out nicely and we are ready to punch some holes in there now. Okay, we are going to mark the holes for our cam snap, and I'm going to also add the optional earring holes to this one. The cam snap is going to go 1/2 inch in from this mitered edge, and I will mark that. We'll want to make sure it's centered. Now sometimes on cork the fabric pens don't work the best. You can use any other pen you want if that's the case for you. I have a little Sharpie handy here, a very fine point Sharpie. Definitely want to take care with those marks, because if we're using a Sharpie, we're not going to be able to erase them. Okay. Now from the other side, I'm going to measure in our earring holes, and I'm going to follow the chart. The spacing for those holes will vary depending on the size wallet that you're making, but the chart and the pattern will explain exactly where to put those holes. Okay, I'm going to use my bigger hole punch for these holes because you'll be able to see them a bit better that way. This is an 1/8 of an inch hole punch. Okay, our jewelry keeper strap is ready to go. I'm going to set it aside. For this next step, I've got my zipper pocket linings and my zippers and a few sewing clips. And I'm going to lay the smaller panel right side up with the zipper right side up and just center this in place and clip it. Then I'm going to take it to the machine and sew at just under a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down. Okay, now I'm going to take this zipper lining and I'm going to flip it. So now we have the lining panel right side down and the zipper right side up. I'm going to take the second lining panel and line it up with the first and with the top of our zipper here. Clip that in place, and again we're going to stitch it. So the way I have this constructed, the right sides of the fabric are facing in. Okay, I'm going to set this one aside and we'll do the other pocket panel. Okay, we're back at the ironing mat with our zipper pockets assembled, and I am going to iron these open. We want the zipper seam allowance to lay flat. We're going to do the other one. Okay, our pocket panels are ready to set aside. Note that I have nylon core zippers, so I took care not to iron over the teeth because I would not want to melt them. And we are going to work on our closure ribbons. For the closure ribbons, we'll want to fold over one end of each ribbon about a 1/4 inch. I eyeball this because it's not really an exact science. And then I'm going to fold the sides in to the center, making them as even as possible. If you want, you can draw a line down the center lengthwise and then fold these sides into that line. I've made enough of these that I can pretty much eyeball it, and I'm comfortable with the results when I do that. Okay, we are going to fold this in one more time to completely enclose those raw edges. And I'm going to put a dab of glue on this finished off edge where we folded in that very first raw edge. That glue is optional, but I think it helps hold that edge together really nicely until you're ready to sew it. And it gives it just a little more security. And I'll still run an iron over that too. I'm just going to fold this in and press it all the way down. I'm going to put in a few clips. If you have pressed that really well, you can probably get by without the clips and just take this to the machine. I'll set this aside and do the other one. We've already folded in the end there. We're going to fold the sides in just like we did before. Okay, these are both ready to sew up now. I'm going to begin sewing this on the raw edge that we did not fold in. Okay, when I get to the very end, I like to backstitch a little and then pivot, and then take a couple stitches back and forth. Okay, this is all sewn up down the entire length of our closure strap. I've snipped the trailing threads and any little threads sticking out. Now, my machine handles the pivot very well, but some machines don't handle that turn with all those layers of fabric. They can get caught down in your feed dog. If you have already glued this first, then you should be fine just ending and backstitching several times and not necessarily pivoting and going down this short edge. I'm going to repeat this process and sew up the second closure ribbon. Okay, at this point, these are done. I like to differentiate this raw edge by sticking a clip there. And another thing you could do, just to prepare for later, is match up these raw edges on your two closure ribbons and add a drop of glue to glue them together, and then clip them and set them aside, and they'll be ready for that final assembly step. Okay, we are ready to start assembling our interior pocket. I've got the pocket panel right side up. I have a ruler and our prepared jewelry keeper strap, some glue, and our zipper pocket inlays. We're going to start using the measurements in the pattern, to lay this out. And the measurements are different depending on the size of wallet you're making. But I'm gonna line up the first zipper inlay and then put our jewelry keeper strap right on top of that for this medium size. I'm going to make sure that the cam snap hole is here on the right. And then we're going to put the next zipper inlay directly on top of that. Put a little bit of glue on this left edge of our keeper strap. Make sure I have it oriented the way I want it. I've got some glue on there. I'm going to press that down. While that glue is drying, I'm going to clip these zipper inlays in place. Okay, now that we have this panel laid out, I'm going to mark the hole for our cam snap. I'm going to mark right through the cam snap hole on the jewelry keeper strap to make a hole through onto our pocket panel. Then we'll take this to the machine. We'll sew up this unsewn left edge, sew down and then up at an angle and down again to make a Z. Along with that glue we've already put in there, it's going to give us a nice secure attachment for the strap. We're also going to then switch our thread to the matching green color and sew the entire box on each zipper inlay, and we'll take it to the machine and do that now. We have attached our zipper inlays to our pocket panel, and now we are going to open up this zipper hole for both of these inlays. And I'm going to make the initial cut very carefully with my rotary cutter. You can use your scissor for this step or a rotary cutter. And if you can see better where your stitching is by turning it over to the reverse side, that is fine too. Either will work. We just do not want to cut beyond our stitches. Okay, once we've made our slits, we're going to use a scissor and cut right into the corners and make a V for each end of our zipper openings. Again, we want to snip into the corners as close as we possibly can without clipping our stitches. Okay, now we're ready to take this back to our ironing mat. Okay, we've got our pocket panel, and I'm keeping our cam snap items handy because once we press the zipper inlays, we are going to go ahead and install that cam snap. I am pressing the zipper inlays from this right side to begin with. This will give us a little more crisp of an edge when we turn them. Turn this over, and we are tucking our entire inlay through the opening, and we're going to press it in place on the reverse side. And this takes a little bit of finessing to make sure we get this nice and straight. You can kind of feel with your fingers. And turn it back over and see if it looks nice and straight. And iron that opening from the front. Okay, to keep this from flopping around, I'm going to pull my glue back out, and this time I'm going to put a little bead of glue close to this interior edge here, close to our zipper opening. This will just tack it in place and hold it out of the way for us. Later in the process, we're going to trim these ends, so I don't want to glue those down. Or if you do want to glue them down a little bit to keep them out of the way, just make sure your glue is really close to the opening and not out here. But generally, I don't think we really need to glue that down. All right, let's repeat this step for the other one. Okay, this is starting to take shape. We've got our zipper boxes all ready. We're ready to put in this cam snap. I'm going to put a hole in my pocket panel. And I'm going to install one end of my cam snap on the pocket panel. And the other end's going to go on the strap. And because we're going through thicker fabric, you may need to press really tight when you tighten that down with the tool. You'll want to make sure that the cap with the pointy end is not sheared off in any way. You need all that extension in order to make a good connection. So I'm going to push that in and then put the male end of the snap in there. And your cam snap tool, you have a little place that you rest the cap into. And you make sure that's situated right, and you press. These instructions should be included with your cam snap setting tool. And test it out. Okay, I think we're ready to install our pockets. We're going to start with the smaller pocket, which is going to go in at the bottom of your pocket panel. I've got this zipper open a ways, and I'm centering our pocket lining on the pocket panel. And then making sure that looks nice, I am going to use the glue again and tack this in place so that we'll be ready to sew it. And when I glue, I like to put the glue right on my stitch line on the zipper. We don't want to take the glue out too far because we're going to trim off our zipper ends as well. This is where you can get fussy with it and make sure your line is nice and straight there. Press it down. And repeat with the other side of the zipper. And I'll often stand up and get a bird's eye view just to make sure that all looks nice. And press it down. I'm going to take this back over to the machine and stitch all around our zipper box, very close to this edge. Probably about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance there. I'm going to make sure my pocket is open. I want these all pulled aside and open. And now I'll stitch around the box. And you'll want to move your zipper pull out of the way as you go. All right, this is how it looks from the underside. And this is what we've got from the top. We are now going to pull this top piece of lining down and then trim our bottom lining so that it matches the top lining. You want to be careful not to trim your whole pocket panel. You just want to get the bottom of this pocket. Okay, now we're going to sew this with the pocket panel right side up. We are going to pull the pocket panel out of the way and sew up the sides and bottom of our zipper pocket. Okay, with our pocket all sewn up, I'm now going to snip my threads and then trim down and trim the corners on this bottom seam. Okay, I'm also going to use a scissor to trim down the zipper. And I use my fabric scissor to also trim our little zipper inlay. I like to use an older scissor to trim my zippers because the zippers kind of can dull your good fabric scissors. Okay, our bottom pocket is installed and ready for use. I like to check and make sure that it's all secure in there. And then we can go ahead and install the top pocket. We're going to do that the exact same way we did the bottom one. Okay, now I'm just flipping this to the back and sort of snipping wherever it might reduce a little bit of bulk. I especially want to keep the bulk out of our seam allowance as best as possible. And we'll have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So anything that hangs over that, I will trim. Okay, our pocket panel is ready to close up. We are gonna fold it in half, lengthwise, wrong sides together, right sides out, matching up our corners. Then I'm going to use the iron to press a crease at the top of our pocket panel. Press that from both sides. And I'm going to use my ruler. This is optional, but just something I like to do for my jewelry wallets. Okay, now at the machine, I'm going to top stitch this creased edge, and we'll catch our tag in with our top stitching. And then I'm going to baste around the sides and bottom. Okay, our pocket panel is complete. Throughout the process here, I'm going to keep these zippers open just a ways so that anywhere we sew around the perimeter, there's no chance of these getting caught. Okay, at this point, I'm going to take our interior lining and figure out which way I want up, which way I want down. There's not a very strong preference here. Doesn't seem to be very directional. I am going to lay our pocket panel down, matching up the sides and matching up these bottom corners. Okay, we have our pocket panel clipped to our interior lining, and I will baste the bottom and the sides. Now we're ready to attach our closure ribbons. Center that at the top of our interior. I'm going to use a drop of glue to hold that in place with a clip so that it doesn't wiggle out of the way when I put it in the machine. We'll let that dry for just a minute, and then I'm going to stitch back and forth to secure that in place. While we're waiting for it to dry, I'm going to tuck the closure ribbon right inside this zipper pocket and keep it out of the way. Okay, our final step is going to be to put it all together. Your exterior panel you would want upside down if you have a directional pattern. I will clip this all the way around, and then we will stitch it up. We are going to leave a hole so that we can turn this through right side out after we're done sewing it. Okay, if needed, grab a tool of your choice. I like to use the blunt end of a paintbrush, and you can use that to poke the corners out. Okay, this is our final time at the ironing table. I'm going to fold in the seam allowance here where our birthing hole is, and press that and clip it in place. Okay, with our birthing hole all lined up and closed and clipped, I'm going to run the iron across the entire perimeter, both front and back, so we have nice crisp sides and corners, and it'll be ready to take to the machine and top stitch. And you can choose to top stitch just around the perimeter of this pocket panel, or to continue your top stitching around the flap as well. I kind of like the way it looks top stitching just the pocket panel, so I think that's what I'm going to do on this particular jewelry wallet. Here at the machine, I am going to top stitch around this pocket panel. I went ahead and swapped out my bobbin thread so that it would match the exterior of my jewelry wallet. And here we go. And this travel jewelry wallet is a wrap. We have our nice big roomy pocket here, our zipper pockets with the cute lining, and we have our jewelry keeper strap with our earring holes. The whole thing wraps up all cute and ready to put in with your luggage. If you have any questions or suggestions, drop them in the comments below. And if you'd like to help my channel, go ahead and like and subscribe. And as always, until next time, happy sewing.